What did I learn about myself and the Road Glide Special 2021 edition after 3.5 days at Sturgis? That's a pretty complex question. But welcome back to the channel. I'm Wyo, and this is my adventures and misadventures. As you may or may not know, I spent 3.5 days out there in Sturgis. It was about a 6-hour ride out there. And I was doing about 15 hours a day, riding all the rides, seeing all the people. I missed all of my favorite moto vloggers. They were all doing meet and greets the day before I got there and the day after I left. Heartbreaking, as you could assume, being in the same situation. But what I learned was that everything about this bike is all about your riding style. A seat that worked for me perfectly when I was gonna spend maybe 7 hours a day on the bike, break it up a little bit in the middle, grab some food, see some friends, and then, you know, ride the other half back. See, it was fine. But you put me on this bike 6 hours, only stopping for gas, getting it at YouTube unfriendly speeds. And man, this seat is just a nightmare. Like, I almost wanted to rip this seat off the bike, toss it on the side of the road, and see if sitting on a frame felt better. Because I couldn't imagine my rear end resenting me any worse than it already did. I learned that if you just jack the suspension, the preload, all the way up, it's not as bad, but it still sucks. So that big huge chart that comes with the bike and how much preload per rider weight and per saddlebag storage weight, chuck that in the trash unless you weigh like 9,500 pounds. If you're a full-size human being and you ride with an average 15-20 pounds, man, just jack that thing, preload it to the roof. Now, that's not my professional recommendation, because I am not a certified Harley-Davidson technician. But I'm gonna tell you, I did it, and the bike didn't suck as bad. Let's see, what else did I learn? I learned that I'm a lot more patient, compassionate, just loving individual more than the average rider my age. Definitely learned that one. You know, as I'm heading home, I'm somewhere maybe 15 minutes east of Spearfish, and I notice a whole group of riders with California plates, and they're dealing with some side winds, and they're just all over the place. So I'm like, all right, let me rip it, get in front of these kids and show them what we do out here in the Midwest. And all these side winds were coming in from the south, headed north. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna point around to my leg, show them what I'm doing. And I take my right leg, hug that bitch in nice and tight on the tank, put my head down so that I'm looking straight through the clear part of my windscreen, so that I'm not looking at the curved part, depending on what kind of screen you got on your bike. You definitely don't want to try and look through the part that curves at the top. If you got some fancy Clockworks or something, that's just going to screw you all up. So if you got one of those, you just stick your head down, look straight through, shift your weight about an inch to the side the wind's coming in on, and then flap your other leg out in a huge triangle, try and catch some resistance. And the bike will almost start to pull itself up in a straight line depending on how fast those winds are. You still might have to do some other compensating, but it works really well. And you'll see riders out here in the Midwest doing it all the time. I thought everybody knew that. Like, I learned that back in Florida when I was headed to hurricane parties. Yeah, it's a thing. So, I get to spearfish. I pull into the local convenience store. Pull up for some gas. And this whole crew of California people rides in between all the fuel tanks just to go real slow, flip his visor up and go, "Man, that was bleep awesome. Thank you for showing us that. We got to show everybody in SoCal how to do that." Alright. And that made me feel good. I made somebody's ride home a little bit easier. Is that culture and that community having that moment. Because if you haven't noticed watching some of my moto vlogs in the previous, we don't have a lot of that culture and community out here. There's maybe 3 or 4 days out here in the summer where you'll see everybody riding and we'll wave, and we see a really nice bike that we like, you know, you'll yell over to the guy or the girl, and yeah, we got a high volume of female riders out here. It's kind of funny. They just say, "Man, that's a nice bike." Share a quick story, light turns green, and you head on about your life. We do have one local biker bar that everybody hangs out at on Sundays, as long as the weather's good. So yeah, also learning about these bars. So many people hate these bars, but I just absolutely love them. Like for me, they're perfectly positioned that if I want to get in here and get aggressive, I can do that. If I want to lay way on back and just kind of take a nap on the pillion, I can do that also. There's a lot of versatility in these bars. I'm still thinking about changing them though, but it's kind of nice to have all that versatility if you really spend a whole lot of hours. Now, I was at a dealer yesterday on my ride back home, and the owner's husband's bike was there. It was a 2019 Road Glide Special, and it had some mini apes on it. I think they call them TBars or whatever, you know, apes that don't have that same curve. It just immediately goes over. It's like halfway between an ape and halfway between a TBar. Had that on it. So I'm like, hey, you know what? Let me check those out real quick. And I'll be damned if I didn't jump on that bike, put my hands on the bars, and it felt like the bike was 100 pounds lighter than mine. when I stood the bike up, just because there was so much extra leverage and the angle of the pullback was so perfect for that particular situation. And I could mentally picture myself doing some very precision oriented riding that is YouTube unfriendly with those particular bars. So I may consider some bars. But yeah, like my 15-hour a day experience taught me that I have my priorities all screwed up, and that I'm clearly a lot older than I thought I was. Because initially, if you watch some of my first videos, you know that the plan was to drop the Wilburs in here, stage 2, end of September, beginning of October, and then do a stage 3 over the winter. And that Sturgis reality check, it told me that my butt and my back are getting old, and it was most definitely time to change my priority. I gotta worry about a seat, some bars, and a suspension a whole lot quicker than I gotta worry about making this bike go a little faster. So, what did I learn about my riding skills? I learned that my slow speed, straight lines, keeping my feet up on the footboards was on point. There's always room for improvement, but compared to a lot of the folks in front of me and beside me, I was on point. And it's hard for me to say positive things about myself. You know, I got a background of fire rescue, military, operating heavy equipment, and in all three of those worlds, you talk some trash, somebody's gonna call you out with a put up or shut up. And so you learn to just keep your mouth shut and let your actions speak for you. So I'm just not in the habit of saying, yeah, I'm really getting good at that 2-3 mile an hour, keeping it steady and straight with friction zone and rear brake. But I'm getting where I want to be. Learning to really dip this thing in and get her done without scraping the extended saddlebags. I feel like I'm on point there too. But there's always somebody that can do it a little faster, get a little lower. There's always room to grow. Now, where I realized I'm getting frustrated and disappointed with myself is the really, really low speed U-turns, tight parking lots, bikes everywhere parking. You know, I can do 3 parking spaces or 2 3/4 parking spaces all day, every day in my sleep. But trying to get it down to that, you know, 2 1/4 or 2 parking spaces, I still feel like I'm a long way off from that, and that's where I want to be.